In the name of Almighty God, the most gracious, the most merciful. This is the first of a series of videos that will be dealing with sex and the human being. Of course, for me, it's even hard to say the word, sex because it's, so taken out of context until the majority of the people that are looking for topics on sex on the internet, they're expecting to see some nudity. They're expecting to see, the actual act of sex. Unfortunately, so that's the world we're living in right now. That all types of people from all races and all walks of life and all occupations and all religions are falling into this trap of the devil of being on the internet looking for sexual activity or looking for nudity. Unfortunately, these are the times that we're living in. So it's hard to find anyone that has not fallen at some point or presently has fallen into this trap of the devil to take all of humanity to the hellfire. So we're going to talk briefly about sex from a standpoint, a moral standpoint, all right, which is rare to see on the internet for someone to talk about sex from a moral standpoint. Well, the human being in general, this is one of our natural desires, it's one of our strongest desires. We have the desire for food, for sex, right? And, of course, making money, earning money. So we have many desires, that are very strong in the human being. So we pursue money very aggressively. Men pursue women very aggressively. And, people seek the best types of food. Sometimes they live to eat as opposed to eating to live. So let's talk about sex to understand it a little better from a moral standpoint. All right, this is only one of a series of videos that will deal with the topic of sex. Sex as a natural urge in the human being, you have to understand that the human being is comprised of a physical aspect, a mental aspect, and a spiritual aspect. Okay, so if these are all in balance, then it's good for the human being. But when it becomes unbalanced, then it's not good for the human being. It becomes self-destructive. So if a person is still on the physical level, fulfilling his animal desires and cravings, which is the sex is on that level, then this is a problem. If a person, gets caught up into the mental pursuit that everything has to be logical and everything has to make sense and everything has to fit together like pieces to a puzzle, then they're also going to be frustrated because there are certain aspects of life, that do not fit into the mental picture or mental structure. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. Especially when you get to the spiritual realm, if your mental meets the spiritual realm, then you don't understand how could there possibly be a creator? How could we have come into existence in the beginning anyway? So many questions come into mind on the mental level that cannot be answered. But everything has its place. Then on the spiritual level, you develop a connection with the Creator, with Almighty God, and now you begin to have an insight, like a third eye, as we call it. So to develop yourself in all three parts in a balanced fashion is what should be the goal or object of the human being. But today we're going to take a look at the sexual aspect, which is on the lowest level. As we come into this life as babies, as human beings, every baby desires to eat and will cry until you feed it. It desires comfort, so you have to change the baby if it has a diaper. It desires comfort. It desires to be held, So all of these things are attached to the physical aspects of the human being. So as the human being gets older physically, if they don't develop themselves mentally, they cannot put a check on their physical desires. So their physical desires continue to control their being, and their mental may be a slave of their physical. So now, if a person desires food and sex and all of these things, then they need to be able to control it so that you just don't eat anything. Maybe some things are bad for you. Maybe some things have poison in it. Maybe it's bad for your health, right? So your mental capacity has to be stronger in control of your physical. And the same thing with sex. If your physical is taking over, then your mental becomes a slave of that, where you are plotting and planning, trying to figure out how you can get that girl or how you can get her into bed, as opposed to knowing that this is wrong. This is somebody's wife. This is somebody's daughter. This is somebody's sister. I have to respect them. I have to respect their family, right? So, and maybe I'll get a disease. Maybe you'll get AIDS, right? So the mental capacity has to be in control of the physical capacity, right? So this is when we talk about sex, as, a Muslim, okay, we're told many things to safeguard ourselves from falling into this trap of the devil of becoming slaves or victims, of our desires, right? Because the devil controls our desires, and whoever controls your desires controls you if you're controlled by your desires. Almighty God, Allah, the Creator, says to us in the Quran, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ أَفَأَنْتَ تَكُونُ عَلَيْهِ وَكِيلًا أَمْ تَحْسَبُ أَنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ يَسْمَعُونَ أَوْ يَعْقِلُونَ هُمْ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. So see, in the Quran, it is beautiful how it explains and talks about how, have you seen those who take their desires to be their God? Do you think that they hear, or that they can use their brains, right? Will you be a guardian over them? Allah asks us that, that they are like animals and that they are worse than animals. Okay, I'm going to stop here because this was just an introduction, but we'll get into the details in the next videos about sexual desire and the human being. May the peace and blessings of the Creator be upon you. In Arabic, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.